Hey, Tom Rabbit! I hope you got this for your recording. Hey, YouTube out there. Tom Rabbit likes to record these. Hey, Tom Rabbit!
Darth, could I ask a quick question that's kind of unrelated?
Sure, go ahead.
Someone was speaking to Jack Angstreich. I know you're aware of him. And I brought up the question that I didn't really know how to answer this, I'll be honest. He brought up...
Was this recent?
Yeah, well, Tom posted it on his channel like hours ago, so I'm pretty sure, yeah. Jack X asked a Muslim, if could God freely create a world, or could God create a world where creatures would freely choose to do good all of the time? And I got to be honest, I didn't really know how to. I mean, this Muslim kid fumbled.
No, that's an incoherent question.
And then
the reason why it's incoherent is because if God creates agents, then there will always be a situation where an agent could choose to be inconsistent from the creator.
Mm. Yep.
So, because look, Jack is a sophist. Okay, now that doesn't mean that he can't talk at length about philosophical topics. I mean, it's a hobby of his. But a sophist is somebody who, uses cleverly sounding arguments that are actually fallacious.
Mm.
Right? Now, for example, if you listen to him interact recently, I don't know when it was, with RT Mullins, okay? When it comes to the issue of time, RT Mullins, I'm actually reading through his book now on time. And I'm sure there's areas of disagreements I have with RT Mullins, but I want to read through the book because he has a good deal of expertise on the issue of God and time. But when Jack was speaking to him, Jack was quite sheepish. Okay? Unlike Jack being as bold as a lion when it comes to issues on time when he's dealing with other people, because he knows that he can employ his sophistry on them. But he didn't dare employ his sophistry on RT Mullins. And when RT Mullins expressed that God himself could be considered primarily what time is, meaning the ground and root and possibility of time, which is change, or the potential to change, all right? He was sheepish. He was uncharacteristically Jack Angstreich, which to me shows that he's a sophist. Okay, so the point is, this is another of Jack's sophist type of questions. Okay, like for example, in the past, he's asked questions like about the issue of the falsifiability of God. This is sophistry, because if the falsifiability criterion actually mattered, he would realize it would destroy his own not God worldview. Because then everything in a world without God, nothing is actually ultimately falsifiable. If there is no ultimate truth that is irrevisable, that is immune from revision, then nothing is truly falsifiable. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Do you agree?
No, I do.
Good. So then if Jack is so smart and so wise in philosophy, how come he doesn't understand that?
I've just recently been acquainted with Jack Angstreich. I don't even... Is he a philosopher?
No, he's not a philosopher. He's a rabid, obnoxious atheist. He's been stalking me for 10 years on the internet. He's weird. There's a number of people who stalk me and are obsessed with me. Okay?
He brought up one other topic that I've never really heard of, and I want to hear your opinion on it. Have you ever heard of the grounding objection to Molinism?
I've heard it referred to. I couldn't repeat back to you what the explanation of it is. So go ahead.
Well, I looked it up. It's the claim that there are no true there are no true counterfactuals concerning what creatures would freely do under certain specified circumstances. And he brought that up to the person he was.
He's not in a position to say anything about this world unless it's derivative or reflective of the mind of God.
Mm-hmm.
Because truth and falsity only have meaning and intelligibility in a God world. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So whenever an unbeliever is challenging the God worldview, and I consider that the Christian worldview is the only viable candidate
Mm-hmm.
for the God worldview, they are always borrowing and stealing certain parameters from the Christian worldview, which necessitate deriving from God. If they reject that, then whatever fundamental parameters they're using that are inherent in their reasoning, where does that come from? The answer is nothing. Okay.
Yeah, you mentioned
Yeah, I wouldn't pay any attention to Jack. He's just an internet sophist. Okay.
Yeah, the transworld depravity, transworld depravity curtails this whole gratuitous suffering objection, which is just to say that conceiving of a world in which creatures didn't freely sin is like conceiving of a squared circle. That is that in every possible world, there's going to be creatures that sin.
Well, this was his. This was he went on and said this is the true problem of evil, which I didn't really. I wasn't aware of.
He can't.
What's the problem?
He can't make any stipulations of truth. Okay. Right. Because what would ultimately metaphysically be the basis of such a truth statement for Jack? Because either he's going to identify what the ultimate truth is or not. I'm sure you agree with that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, if he identifies what is ultimately true, then it would be unfalsifiable, would it not?
If he identifies what's ultimately true, it would be unfalsifiable.
Either when Jack says something is true,
mm-hmm.
Okay, either it's true in virtue of that which is ultimately true, or not.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
Now, if what he says is true, whatever he says is true in virtue of what is ultimately true, or not. So let's take the first leg, that there is some ultimate truth from which all other true beliefs derive and depend. Okay? Now, that would mean then the ultimate truth from which all other true beliefs derive and depend, that would mean it would be unfalsifiable, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then Jack would reject that because he has a criterion of belief that something has to be in principle falsifiable.
Okay, I understand.
Now, if he doesn't take that leg, then the point is then the so-called truth has no fundamental or ultimately grounding, which would violate his own atheist cliche of, what's the argument for that?
Oh, I hate that.
Right? So he's screwed either way. So I wouldn't waste your time either interacting with him or listening to him. He is just simply he's a very strange person, in my opinion. He's an internet stalker, right? And he just surrounds for himself weird groupies, okay? And I just gave you a devastating critique of his position along with the other atheists who reflect that sort of position. It is sophistry. I spoke with him 11 years ago on Skype in a private conversation. Okay. Now, after that conversation, I realized that I was dealing with somebody who wasn't wrapped too tight, in my opinion. That they were just willing to resort to any type of deceptive response to evade the line of reasoning that I was presenting. Right? So I wouldn't waste your time listening to him. He's not nearly as smart as he think he is, or as other people think he is. He's just good at the sophistry and drawing together, a small cult like following.
Yeah, I mean, the whole thing with the problem of evil.
Hold on a second. Did you get that, Tom Rabbit? I hope your batteries are still being charged in your laptop. Did you get that so that you can send that to Jack? I hope you got that, Tom Rabbit.
He's probably in here. Yeah, that omnibenevolence necessarily includes voluntarity. Can't even speak this morning. Voluntarity.
Yeah, hold on a second, Tom Rabbit. I'm gonna remove you from the room there. Let's see. We'll remove this person. This one's probably Tom Rabbit here. Okay, there we go. There we go.
It's
like concerning.
Every single room that I think that has been recorded, Kyle's been in there. So have you verified Kyle before?
It's concerning that his whole life.
Yeah, come on up, Kyle.
Is like that. Kyle.
Yeah, Kyle keeps on showing up as well. I just checked my notes on him. Hey, Kyle, come on up, bud.
It looks like such a fake profile picture too.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
It's like from like
you can barely see the
2005.
picture.
Oh, he left conveniently. Look at that.
No. I removed him.
Oh, you removed him. All right.
Yeah.
And
for all we know, James, you could be a surrogate of Tom Rabbit asking
That's
you
true.
questions.
That's true.
I'm not accusing you, but
No, I know.
Given, you see, I'm not saying this out of vindictiveness, but I'm saying this because I truly believe it, that Tom Rabbit, like many of the atheists that we encounter on Discord, is a mentally and spiritually warped individual. Okay, and they tend to think that they're a lot smarter than they are, but they also have the mentality, and I mean this sincerely, they have the mentality of teenagers, even though they are chronologically adults. I'll be a little crude here. Who the fuck spends their adult time hours and hours and hours and hours and hours every day trying to follow me around and record me for uploading it to YouTube? What purpose is that serving other than you get a couple of hundred atheists or a couple of thousand atheists listening and going, "Oh yeah, what a moron Darth Dawkins is." I mean, it's beyond childish. He's not accomplishing, he's not producing any content of his own. Much of what he records is just there being fireworks and conversations. Okay? I mean, whether somebody agrees with me or not, the amount of time that I spend while I'm working and not working, conversing on the internet, because it's very convenient to do on my computer and phone with a headset. Okay? I'm actually trying to communicate a cogent message of the necessity of Christianity and the judgment day that is to come. But you see, in Tom Rabbit's world, life is ultimately meaningless, right?
He hasn't been able to produce any content from this particular Clubhouse room. He hasn't been able to produce any comment for a week now.
Yeah. Well, that's because I keep on ejecting people. Now, interestingly enough, the point is how shall I put this? If you actually listen to him interact with people, it is crystal clear, at least to me, and although I'm biased, I'm trying to be objective, but I admit my bias. He's not that smart. He just engages in a lot. I mean, the amount of sophistry that he engages with, it's shocking how much sophistry, blatant sophistry
and then he suffocates you, and then he suffocates you with the empty rhetoric, and it's just
yeah.
Vomit.
So I've heard him argue before. You know, and it's very evident when you actually converse with him. That like he doesn't, outside of Discord, like research or study. Like he just laps up like the leftovers and sparse information he retains from like Jack Angstrike. Like that's it. Like because the conversations don't last very long with him.
if you listen to some of the debates that he's had, right? Well, isn't that interesting? Okay. Isn't that interesting? The moment I ejected several people, Skyline shows up. Isn't that interesting, my fellow believers?
I really don't think Skyline's one of them.
I hope you're right. Okay, but getting back to what I was saying is if you listen carefully to Tom Rabbit's interactions, in my opinion, right? He's simply regurgitating the fecal droppings of Jack Angstrike. It's sophistry. It's pure sophistry. If you heard the last 2 or 3 interactions that I had with him, he evaded me for several years in debating atheists. Then finally, one day he shows up and just says he wants to debate it on Modern Day Debate. And I said, no, I'm not gonna do this. Okay, I'm not going to do this unless you have a track record of conducting yourself like an adult on Discord. And so after that, we had about 3 encounters, and he was in full adolescent mode. Okay. Now, somebody who has intellectual confidence in their ability to debate on a subject is not going to act like an adolescent or a sophist, which is what he did. And if you don't believe me, just go back and listen to the recordings of the last 2 or 3 encounters, right?
What's his new Jay? You've spoken with him about his new question of the month seems to be about God being able to tell a lie or something. Jay Robin, do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, look, yeah. So
his
I
new
do.
one seems
listen. He is he's a very stupid person. I'm just gonna put it out there.
I just
He's
don't
a very
understand.
stupid person. So he tried to ask me that question again, like a couple weeks ago, and you just tell him very very simply, you don't have a grounding for knowledge if what is fundamental is a liar.
Yeah, but
And
exactly.
he doesn't seem to understand. He doesn't seem to understand that. Okay,
and I was
so if he doesn't
listening
understand
to
it,
the video, and
right?
that's what you told him. And I don't
Exactly.
understand what the objection. He kept coming back on like, if God is not a
There,
deceiver. That's the answer to it.
this is what sophists do. Look, let me give you my take on it here, okay? He says, well, in a thought experiment, what if we have a God that always tells the truth, except for when he says the coffee is hot when he knows it's cold? Other than that, right? Now, okay, now I'm not quoting him verbatim here. I'm just giving you a parallel, okay? So he just tells one lie, right? Here's what he doesn't understand. If he actually had a greater understanding of Ventilian biblical thought, he wouldn't ask such a stupid question. Because here's the problem. He's putting out a proposition. There's God, and that he always tells the truth, and except for one time he lies. But the point is, where does that propositional truth emanate from? A God who is not always truth revealing. So how do you know that proposition is true? All right, I got to go.
Yeah, it's just like if he always tells the truth in your example, he told a lie. Like I think it's just a malform.
The problem is he's positing a external belief on our worldview, right? We don't believe God can tell a lie. So the point he's saying is, if God tells lies, like it doesn't matter if, because he can't. That doesn't work in our worldview. So this hypothetical is mute.
Mm. Right.
Yeah, you can't just be adding new qualia to our God that he has not revealed to us.
Well, I just be like, well, that's not the God I believe in. I mean,
he's like, well, I remember because I heard him with Jay Dyer, and he was like, well, what if your God tells a lie? He doesn't.
He doesn't, exactly.
What if he did? Well, he doesn't. So you're not understanding, dude.
That's like asking. Yeah, you have to tell him. That's just like asking, what if a square was a circle? It's like, no, it's not even a coherent possibility that should be entertained.
Yeah, what if
simply.
you have a four-sided triangle? Like they just put forth these hypotheticals as if they're potential actuals. This is the whole problem. Like, there is no potential actual that the God of the Bible could lie. There is no potential actual you can have a four-sided triangle. It's really that simple.
By the way, did you get that, Tom Rabbit?